RPN, Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXKO. 13 sa Zinday Utso sa bayan sa inyong radyo. RPN DXKO, ang Radyo Ronda dili sa Dakbayan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sibiyahan na may galaon sa katawhan, andam mo serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPN DXKO Radyo Ronda sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Sa mga tanong ninyo, and we try to, your co-workers, not literally you, but your co-workers in journalism. And the person in the table is just, replying and accommodating such question. So, wala talaga siyang plan. In fairness, talaga. Kasi ang talagang intention doon, yung matahimik, yung mga supporter ng kandidatong yaon na nagpapakalat, nabili na si ganito, si ganito, nakopera na si ganito, si ganyan. But through accommodation with your questions, siyempre, kanya-kanya ng speed yun. Just the same, it came from naturally, tinawag ng pagkakataon.
Lacson, meanwhile, insists there was a hidden agenda in Robredo's initiative to unify the candidates. In a tweet, he said, quote, "I came prepared, the other party was not," unquote. Lacson yesterday recalled the unification efforts made by Robredo before the filing of certificates of candidacy in October last year. Robredo had said she rejected the unification formula versus the Duterte administration proposed by Lacson, as this would demand that candidates eventually withdraw from the race in support of a common bet. Lacson's running mate, Senator Tito Soto, appeared to blame the media for asking questions that veered away from the main intention of the press conference.
Masagwa yung mga tanong ng media. Yung open forum, ang tanong, doon napunta kay BP. Di ba? I was surprised at the question of the media. Parang mga planted eh.
So, lilinawin natin ngayon.
Parang planted yung mga questions na papunta kay BP Leni at saka kay Bongbong eh. Actually, na-concentrate kay BP Leni. Wala doon yun, si George statement.
With the joint press conference on Easter Sunday ending with Moreno calling on Robredo to quit the race and Lacson and Norberto Gonzales warning that if front-runner Bongbong Marcos wins, a destabilization attempt might happen, a political analyst says unification is now a ship that has already sailed. Our George Quilas has that story.
I'm calling for Leni to withdraw. Kasi whatever you're doing is not effective against the Marcos.
It's the first time in this campaign season for a presidential candidate to publicly call on a rival to back out. At the home stretch of the election period, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno wants Vice President Leni Robredo to give way to either him, Senator Ping Lacson, or former Defense Chief Bert Gonzales. Without going into specifics, they claim the Robredo camp was trying to make them quit the race. Robredo ranked second in the last Pulse Asia pre-election survey with 24%, while Moreno, Lacson, and Gonzales were far behind.
Pwede pasab? Pasab naman. Baka kami maka 3 points. Isa sa amin.
Political analyst Julio T. Hanqui says the three presidential candidates have missed their opportunity, and attacking Robredo, the only female presidential candidate, may backfire on them.
I think it was a last-ditch effort to create a buzz that will energize their respective campaigns. But it turned out to be a buzz. It's a winner-take-all contest, and obviously the finals will be between the first and second placer. At this stage in the game, there's no room for third, fourth, or even fifth placer.
Tihanqui says if Moreno, Lacson, and Gonzales have misgivings about the vice president, they could have just united for a three-way fight against survey frontrunners Bongbong Marcos and Robredo. He adds floating possible destabilization and coup attempts should Marcos or Robredo win may only erode the integrity of the elections. In an interview on CNN Philippines The Source, Gonzales admits he does not have enough proof of these claims.
What we have are reports. I am not in office, so I really have no means of really validating. I'm using my experience to have an analysis of reports I'm getting. I know for a fact there will be cheating in the next elections.
That is pure speculation, no? Because even if they win, there will always be that possibility of political instability.
Tihanki says a common bet against Marcos is no longer workable, and he believes Robredo's momentum will be steady if her supporters could focus on converting the warm bodies attending her rallies into survey numbers and eventually into votes. George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
Norberto Gonzales warns against possible cheating by allies of rival Bongbong Marcos. Gonzales plans to appeal to the Commission on Elections to address vote-buying practices, as he believes local officials will cheat on the former senator's behalf. The former defense secretary cited an unverified claim that 90% of governors will back Marcos.
Will he say on what these people will do during election time with their watches? And when somebody claims that 90% of the governors are with him, does this mean that 90% of the governors will cheat in his behalf? Will he agree? Will he consent? And you will say, I have proof? My God. You ask every governor, intimately, as friends, they will tell you, may pera na kami, nakahanda na kami dyan.
Meanwhile, Gonzales insists he will not back out of the race. If asked by his rivals, he reiterated he would not withdraw despite supposed calls from the campaign of Vice President Leni Robredo.
I'm being misunderstood. I respect the Vice President very much. In fact, before I plan of running for election, I tried to see her for 3 months. Hinahanap-hanap ko talaga siya. Nagkataon lang na siguro may mga kaibigan siya na ayaw na magkausap kami. Yung sinabi ko doon sa mga lumapit sa akin, please, huwag niyo na akong pansinin. Alam niyo naman na nasa bottom ako eh. So walang effect ako sa gagawin niyo with Vice President. Kakababa lang ng paningin sa sarili yung para bang hindi mo naiintindihan na nangyayari sa bayan. Hindi mo nangyayari kung nakikita na nangyayari sa politika. Na sasabihan ka ng papa mo kandidato, ay mag-withdraw ka na.
The campaign of presidential bet Faisal Mangundato dissociates itself from the Easter Sunday media briefing. Mangundato's political party, the Katipunan ng Kamalayang Kayumanggi, says he was unaware of the event. Katipunan's spokesperson adds candidates should not treat voters like property that they can sell or exchange for their favor. The party spokesperson also claiming Mangundato's name was dragged during the press conference after candidates insisted there are many options in the presidential race, including the Mindanaoan businessman. On the campaign trail, 21 days before the Filipino votes, Bongbong Marcos and running mate Sara Duterte will hold a grand rally in the city of Cebu later this evening. Before that, the tandem will stage a mini rally for persons with disabilities and senior citizens. Ernie Abella was also in Cebu City, where he made rounds of the wet market there. Labor leader Calyodi de Guzman joined a protest against open-pit mining in South Cotabato a day after he met with leaders of the Tiboli tribe. De Guzman vowed to support them in their fight against mining and land displacement. Senator Manny Pacquiao attended a prayer meeting at a Christian church in Marikina. More than 100 people are still missing after landslides triggered by the first major storm of the year leveled communities in Baybay City in Leyte. Frontline responders say 110 remain unaccounted for, while at least 172 have died. Authorities are still verifying the numbers, but for those who have seen the massive devastation, there's no other choice but to grieve and cope with the loss. Rexter Media has that story.
Masakit po kasi po. Ano po eh.
Berna Basierto's daughter Ziana was killed by the landslide that hit Barangay Mailhi in Baybay City.
Doon po ako na parang nawalan ako ng gas sa sarili kasi hindi ako makapaniwala yung nag-iisa kong anak na minahal ko ng buong buo, na mas mahal ko pa kaysa sa sarili ko. Iniwan po ako.
Berna has been working as a house helper in Manila when she learned about the tragedy that struck her village. She immediately borrowed some money from her boss and went on a 3-day bus ride to her hometown. When she arrived, all that she saw was her daughter's lifeless body. Her father and some relatives who were living nearby are still missing.
Yun lang, bakal na bakit kita gusto mang kita yakapin. Bawal eh, gusto mang kita halikan. Bawal kahit sinasabi nilang mabaho ka eh, anak naman kita eh. Walang mabaho sa isang ina.
Berna left Siana with her relatives when she was only 7 months old. As a single mother, she needed to work harder to make ends meet. She's also diagnosed with goiter and she says she's doing her best to stay strong for her one and only child.
Sabi ko nga po sa kanya, antayin niya ako eh. Antayin niya ako kasi yung mga araw na wala ako, babawi ko yun eh, pag magaling na ako. Tapos lalo pa siya nawala. Kaya hindi ko po alam kung anong gagawin ko bilang isang ina. Kasi sobrang sakit po eh.
Maribel Mejia, meanwhile, was working as a waitress in the city when she chanced upon a Facebook post where the names of her 8-year-old daughter, father, and sister were listed as among those who died in the landslide. When she rushed to the barangay hall, her daughter Maria Carla was already in a black body bag.
Sinabi ko pa nga sa kanya na bangon na pa tayo, mamasyal pa tayo sa hanginan, sa may maasin.
Like Berna, Maribel repeatedly asked herself if she could have done something to save her daughter's life. She couldn't help but recall their sweetest moments together.
Love you, ma. May katama. May kumpleto pa na kiss. Lahat-lahat ng mukha ko hinalikan.
For Maribel and Berna, the hardest question now is how to start all over again. Rex Remitio, CNN Philippines, Baybay City, Leyte.
Coming up on Newsnight, lawmakers want to overturn the president's veto of a measure that will require you to register your SIM cards. And the OG queens of K-pop give the world something unexpected on the Coachella stage. Stay tuned to CNN Philippines. welcome back. The World Health Organization is not keen on backing calls to redefine fully vaccinated just yet. WHO representative to the Philippines, Rahendra Yadav, says they still prefer the term up to date with the recommended primary and booster shots. But he notes the definition may still change as we learn more about COVID-19.
Fully vaccinated is a vague term because the definition may change with evolving evidence. How many boosters are required? Do we need to keep giving boosters every 6 months? We don't know that yet because this is a new pandemic and we are new. The COVID-19 is new for us. So it's better to use terms like up to date with the recommended schedules.
So far, 3 doses are recommended for the general public, while health officials are preparing to roll out a 4th shot for select groups. Carolyn Bonkin explains why the elderly, among others, should get a second booster.
Senior citizen Benito Bangkaya is among the fully vaccinated without a booster shot until now.
Nakikiramdam muna ako kung ano ang kinalalabasan ng nagpa-booster. Wala lang akong time magpa-booster kasi bumabiyahe ako.
The government is still struggling to get more people boosted. Now, fully vaccinated elderly like Benito have to think whether or not to get 1 or 2 booster shots. The FDA just approved a second booster for the elderly aged 60 and up, moderately and severely immunocompromised individuals, and frontline healthcare workers. 4 months from the first booster. For the sick, it depends on the doctor's advice. DOH says among the approved brands to be used are Pfizer, Moderna, Sinovac, Sinopharm, AstraZeneca, and Johnson & Johnson. Administration of a second booster starts as soon as the Health Technology Assessment Council makes a final recommendation. Infectious diseases specialist Dr. Ronjin Solante is among the vaccine experts who reviewed the second booster data. They recommended this to DOH after learning that the elderly and immunocompromised individuals' protection against COVID declines after 4 months.
Their antibody waned faster, and giving them a second booster will enhance and sustain that protection so that if ever there will be a surge and spike of cases, then this vulnerable population will be prevented from developing severe infection.
DOH has issued warning of yet another possible surge in mid-May if problem on compliance to health protocols persist. We talked to some senior citizens. Others, like Tomas and Feli, intend to get the second booster.
Sa katayo ako, kaya ko pa naman, may edad na. Yung mga ini-injection sa akin, okay naman. Ang nakakaalam dyan, mga doktor.
Maganda naman ang pangontra na yan nga, hindi tayo madapuan ng sakit.
But others are against it.
Baka ma-overload ako. Baka masobra, hindi na ako maging tao.
Hindi ko pa kasi alam kung ano na yan eh. Kung ano yung effect. Yung effect kasi sa akin yung naging booster ko, nag-nose bleeding ako.
Nagpa-booster ako doon ako nagkasakit eh. Tama na sa akin yung second dose lang.
For Marcy and Ruel, they've had enough of the vaccines. Dr. Solante says a second booster isn't mandatory.
Hindi naman kami magre-recommend kung nakakasira or dulot ng hindi maganda sa katawan ninyo.
Aside from the Philippines, countries offering a second booster to high-risk population are Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, Belgium, Denmark, South Korea, Chile, UK, Israel, and the US. Caroline Bonkin, CNN Philippines.
After having to forego Holy Week practices for 2 years because of the pandemic, Filipino Catholics have brought back traditions to celebrate Easter. David Santos tells us more devotees visited churches over the long weekend.
Like the message of Easter, Christian churches and traditions are coming back to life. For the first time since 2020, the Manila Cathedral allowed the faithful to join in the Via Crucis or Way of the Cross on Friday.
May fear din kami na baka nasanay na sa online masyado yung mga tao na convenient yung online, hindi pupunta sa simbahan. Pero ngayon, talagang nakita natin yung pananampalataya ng mga tao.
A massive crowd thronged the streets leading to Quiapo Church where the Black Nazarene procession passed Thursday midnight. This was the first time the iconic image was being paraded since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. But despite appeals to keep the event solemn and organized, many worshippers forced their way in to get close to the vehicle bearing the statue. The unruly crowd prompted organizers to cut short the procession due to safety reasons. But on Good Friday, Quiapo's Santo Entierro procession proceeded without any hitch. Other churches also teeming with people. Many went around churches and even small chapels, bringing along family and friends. Since COVID-19 cases in the country have been declining, the Christian community took advantage of the Holy Week to go out while doing penitential prayers after lockdowns and restrictions these past 2 years.
Matapos na yung COVID, tapos yung gera sa Ukraine, saka sa Russia, saka yung matinong eleksyon.
Iba po yung pakiramdam. Nakapasok po tayo muli ng simbahan, at the same time po, tayong team na nakipag-usap sa kanya.
Church leaders say Holy Week services offered prayers for peace in Ukraine, the national elections next month, and for victims of the recent storm in the Visayas. Aside from security measures, health protocol are still observed in many churches.
Gusto nating balansehin yung pananampalataya na ipinapahayag natin at yung kaligtasan din naman ng bawat isa.
Because keeping their doors open and welcoming back the faithful also entails having to make sure everyone remains safe. David Santos, CNN Philippines.
In other news, lawmakers are threatening to override a presidential veto on the SIM card registration bill. Senator Grace Poe wants Congress to reconsider the measure, seeking the mandatory registration of subscriber identification module or SIM cards of mobile phone users when creating social media accounts. She says none of her colleagues objected when such a provision was tackled in the plenary. The veto, however, received mixed reactions from other lawmakers. Page Javier reports at least one group insists there are other ways to fight cybercrime.
The fight is not over for lawmakers pushing to make the registration of prepaid SIM cards mandatory in the country. Senate President Tito Soto earlier expressed disappointment over the president's veto because of the social media provision. Soto says there are two ways to save what they believe is an important bill. First is for the next Congress to refile the measure without the social media provision. Senator Win Gatchalian and his brother, Congressman Wes Gatchalian, principal authors of the counterpart measures, are in favor of this. The other option is for Congress to overturn the president's veto and raise it to the Supreme Court. Soto says he will discuss this with Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea. The president did not agree with the inclusion of social media registration, also citing the lack of clear guidelines. Under the provision, users must input their real names and numbers when creating a social media account. Congressman Gatchalian earlier claimed this was a last-minute insertion by Senator Franklin Drilon.
Maganda rin pag-aralan yung proposal ni Senator Drilon, but on a separate bill kung pwede. Let's just focus on SIM card and focus on the crimes that are happening within the parameters of a SIM card.
Drilon belied this claim and said the provision has safeguards on the right to privacy. He added, the president's veto is a win for trolls who continue to spread fake news in the country. As for Bayan Secretary General Renato Reyes, they are not convinced about the reason for the president's veto.
Ang problema namin dun sa naging statement ng Palasyo, akala mo seemingly concerned sa privacy and all that, pero sila din naman kasi yung promotor nung napakaraming troll farms. Government would be the first ones to stop weaponizing social media.
Reyes believes law enforcers should heighten their investigations into cybercrimes, while telcos and social media platforms must beef up their security measures. At the end of the day, Reyes says the measure is not the solution.
There's no safeguard insofar as yung privacy at saka yung security of information. Tapos yung social media users na gusto ng anonymity, gusto ng privacy, mawawala na sa kanila yon, no? And most likely they will be subject to state surveillance, no? So nagkakaroon ng chilling effect yun.
Paige Javier, CNN Philippines.
The Senate Committee on Public Order will recommend a law regulating online cockfighting following the conclusion of the probe on the 34 missing people linked to Isabong The committee says it wants to limit online operations to Sundays and legal holidays. Senator Francis Tolentino cried foul over the continued operations of e-Sabong even on Good Friday. Committee Chairman Batot de la Rosa says they will also seek immediate charges against the suspects and persons of interest. He wants authorities to further investigate gambling tycoon Atong Ang.
Hanggang kay Atong Ang, sigurado ako aabot doon sa kanila. Alam nga naman bibingi-bingihan, magbubulag-bulagan lang yung committee. Very clear naman na kanilang sabungan yun. Sino ang makikinabang doon? Di ba? So, aabot yan hanggang doon kay Atong Ang.
Ang maintained he is innocent and that the allegations against him are supposedly part of a conspiracy to bring him down. We'll be back with more stories. An iconic duo in Filipino music is making its concert comeback in June, finally performing in front of a live audience after more than 2 years. Also slated for June is a much-awaited new album from BTS. Details when we come back.
What makes a nation grow? Every day we see them. The providers, the traders, the movers, the doers, and the go-getters. Each play their part, whether big or small, in creating a better life for all. Whichever your role may be, we're right here.
Welcome back in CNN Philippines. Another important task for pole vault star EJ Obiena at the Southeast Asian Games. Other than defending his gold medal, Obiena was given the honor of being our flag bearer at the May 12th opening ceremony in Vietnam. The Philippine Olympic Committee revealed that organizers turned down plans for both Obiena and Olympic gold medalist Heidelin Diaz to carry our flag. Last month, Obiena finally got the green light to compete at the Hanoi, Vietnam event after resolving his feud with the Athletics Track and Field Association. Well, speaking of defending titles, Ginebra is just a win away from recapturing the PBA Governor's Cup trophy. The Gin Kings beat the Meralco Bolts in Game 5 of the finals yesterday at the Smart Araneta Coliseum, 115-110. Big news now in K-pop. Legendary girl group 21 surprised the Coachella 2022 crowd and the rest of the world with a reunion performance of I Am the Best yesterday. This was their first performance together since the OG Queens of K-pop disbanded in 2016. Originally, CL was the only 21 member expected to perform at the music festival, but Bomb, Dara and Minzy appeared for an explosive reunion. 21 top Twitter trends until today. And BTS ARMY's Mark Your Calendars. A new album from the world-famous K-pop group arrives June 10th. The release date for the still untitled record was revealed after the BTS's last show in Las Vegas over the weekend. And here at home, the megastar and Asia's Songbird are welcoming back live shows with another round of iconic concerts. Sharon Cuneta and Regine Velasquez Alcacid are performing on June 17 and 18 at the Resorts World Manila. The veteran musicians share their excitement over the back-to-back gigs, with Sharon talking about what makes their collaboration so special.
She is, for me, the best. Yung kaya kanyang kainin ng buong buo, pero hindi niya ginagawa. Because I'm alto and she's soprano. Which makes for a very interesting performance, actually. And cute kasi pag nag-blend na yung mababa at yung mataas.
Me, personally, I need it. I need to see a live audience again. I need to be on stage again. This has been my life, for 25 years.
The first iconic show was held in 2019, winning a Leo Awards Best Collaboration in a Concert that year. And that is it for tonight. Join me again on news.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pio Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXKO. 13:68 sa dial sa inyong radyo. RPM DXKO, ang Radyo Ronda dili sa Dakbayan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sibiyahan na may galaon sa katawhan, andam mo serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPM DXKO Radyo Ronda, sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Heart disease is a leading cause of death here in the Philippines. In fact, it affects 1 in 6 Filipinos. For the most part, it's a consequence of an unhealthy diet. But it's never too late to adopt healthier habits in order to take good care of our hearts. On the program today, we'll talk about practical and effective ways to live a heart-healthy lifestyle. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome to MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. At the very core of our overall health is our heart. Our guests are here today to give us tips on how to keep it healthy. With us is Dr. Gilbert Villela. He's the president of the Philippine Heart Association and the director for education and research of the Philippine Heart Center. Also with us is Coach Jay Garcia, who is a medical exercise specialist of Coach Jay Wellness. Early on the show, we mentioned that Filipinos are vulnerable to heart disease. And one of the main reasons for this is an unhealthy diet. I'll start the conversation with Dr. Gibo. What is it about the Filipino diet that puts us at high risk for heart disease?
The Filipino diet comes from the culture from Spain and China. The Spain is oily and the China is salty. Oil plus salt equals cardiovascular disease, equals hypertension, equals diabetes. Kapag masyado kang marami na kain na oil, this will cause an inflammation in your arteries, making it very stiff and hard. That's why the heart will get a hard time pumping blood through it.
You explained to us what happens to the heart when we have an unhealthy diet. But I think one of the cultural reasons, like what you said, apart from that, is there's a gap between when a person eats unhealthily and when they feel the symptoms. I think this is also one of the reasons why people who eat unhealthily do so continuously also because they don't really feel any symptoms right away. Is eating unhealthily going to catch up with us eventually if we continue to do this?
Yes, especially if you take an excess of sugar and excess of oil also. Because these things, these foodstuffs, will stimulate a lot of insulin production from our body. Kasi di ba ang insulin ang nag-metabolize ng sugar mo at saka ng oils mo. And then, mag-overwork ang liver mo and then it will secrete a lot of fats. And these fats will cause fatty liver, and fatty liver is the gateway to diabetes and metabolic syndrome. Now, yung excess oils and sugars will harden your arteries. Remember na yung arteries mo, dito pinapump ng puso mo yung blood para mag-circulate. Ang tigas-tigas yan. So yung heart mo, hirap na hirap siya mag-pump. So what happens is, ang una-una mong mararamdaman ay chest pain kung minsan, shortness of breath kadalasan, and then mamamanas ka o edema ang tawag. Kasi sobrang hirap na ang puso mo.
Let's talk about yung kapartner ng eating healthy, which is exercise. Coach Jay, gaano ka-importante ang exercise or physical activity sa ating mga puso?
Very important, no? Kasi exercise, we as humans were designed to move talaga. So if we don't move much, no, the problem with that is yung stored excess energy natin will turn into fat and eventually will lead to cardiovascular diseases.
Coach Jay, ano yung mga mas common na misunderstandings with regards to exercise? Is mahal ito, kailangan na member ka sa isang gym? Is this true to be able to get an effective physical workout and to be healthy overall?
Not really naman kasi exercise can be, especially now during pandemic, can be done at home. There's a lot of form of exercise that you don't need bulky or expensive equipment. So for example, you can use your body weight, focus on the basic movement patterns such as pulling movements, pushing movements, squat movements, rotation movements. Our goal naman is at least exercise 30 minutes a day of physical activity is a good start.
For now, let's talk more about heart disease. And this includes a number of problems that can affect your heart. Here in the country, the most common are ischemic heart disease and hypertension. Dr. Gibo, tell us about these conditions. What happens to the heart of a person with these cardiovascular diseases?
Well, pag sinabi meron kang ischemic heart disease, ang pangunahing symptoms dyan ay chest pain. Actually, hindi naman siya actually pain. It is a discomfort sa gitna ng chest mo. Parang mabigat o masikip ang paghinga. Usually triggered ng movement o ng exertion. Usually, ang hypertension naman, hindi naman siya heart disease, pero it is a risk factor for ischemic heart disease. Pag mataas ang blood pressure mo, in a few years, pag hindi mo control yun, you will have ischemic heart disease. Why? Because ang hypertension would stimulate obstruction or pagbabara ng iyong mga ugat. Ang ischemic heart disease, sa Tagalog yan, baradong ugat mo sa iyong puso. Yung supply ng dugo sa iyong puso ay nagbabara. Kaya hinihingal ka, namamanas ka, sumasyakat ng dibdib mo, napapagod ka. Akala mo mataba ka lang o akala mo wala kang exercise, wala kang condition. But you're really sick with heart disease.
With hypertension, it is a risk factor for ischemic heart disease. Ngunit maraming may hypertension, Doc Gibo, na walang nararamdaman na simptomas which prevents them from seeing a doctor. Bakit kaya ganun, Doc Gibo? Ang taas ng high blood, wala naman siyang nararamdaman sintomas. What's your advice for people like those?
Kung ikaw ay 1, lalaki, 2, nakisigarilyo, 3, more than 60 or 65 years old, 4, ikaw ay merong diabetes, 5, ikaw ay mataas ang cholesterol, 6, may lahi ka ng high blood o sakit sa puso, and 7, pag ikaw ay obese o napakataba, dapat nagmamonitor ka ng blood pressure every day, twice a day. Anong gagamitin pang monitor ng BP sa bahay mo? Ang advice and guidelines, hindi pwedeng manual kasi mali daw yun. Ang mas accurate ay yung digital blood pressure monitor na nabibili sa mga drugstores. Kinakabit dito sa upper arm, hindi pwede sa wrist or sa thumb. Dapat sa upper arm. You have to monitor your blood pressure twice a day, before breakfast and before supper. Ang cut-off mo, dapat hindi ka lalagpas ng 135 over 82. Huwag kang lalagpas doon sa bahay. Pag lumalagpas ka lagi doon, punta ka sa doktor mo. Something is wrong.
Now, the two main risk factors for heart attacks are cholesterol as well as mataas na blood pressure. When we return, we'll talk about what to avoid to keep them in check. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk, your partner in healthcare. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk, where caring is our calling. A healthy heart often means a longer life. And among the factors that can contribute to heart disease are cholesterol as well as blood pressure. high blood pressure for that matter. And embracing a healthy lifestyle can help manage the two, and in turn, keep your heart strong. Can we lose extra weight and be healthy purely from healthy eating alone? Walang weights, walang cardio.
It can be done, but in the long run, it has to be a combination of both. Kasi what tends, your body kasi settles for, it looks always for equilibrium. So for example, you tend to eat less, diba? Kasi you want to lose weight. Yeah, you lose weight at some point, but eventually your body will treat it as like you're in a starvation mode. Or for example, si Coach Jay kumakain ngayon ng konti. So what I need to do is slower ko yung metabolism ko. And by that means, babagal na yung weight loss mo and eventually magpa-plateau ka.
Pero Coach Jay, pagdating sa exercise, we all have the idea, pagdating natin ng exercise, gym, strict program, maraming pawis, lots of perspiration. But just being more active, increasing physical movement like taking the stairs on the way down after work, some studies say is enough to create a change in one's overall health. Totoo ba to, Coach Jay? Can we see significant results in our health with small changes in how active we are?
Yes, it's true. Kasi the main goal is here is to create a long-term habit or long-term goal. So some of us kasi we tend to start an exercise program, then we commit it for it like ng mga 1 week or 2 weeks lang. So kasi nga we tend to do it too soon, too intense, kung ano yung nakikita natin sa mga workout videos, sa mga friends natin. So basically, what we need to do is to build a habit.
What are some of the diagnostic tests available here in the Philippines that a cardiologist would request for those who are feeling symptoms of heart disease? And ano naman yung mga practical tests done for those who are not feeling any significant symptoms but would like a general idea of their overall heart health?
You better check your blood chemistry, including blood sugar, lipid profile, and then you could test. Also, yung liver function test mo. Now, pag ikaw yung nag-chest pain na, you must go to a cardiologist or to a doctor to have your ECG taken. Probably you will also need some x-ray to rule out any pulmonary disease causing the chest pain. And then you will have to have an echocardiogram para mas malalim ang tingin ng doktor mo para makita talaga anatomically anong nangyayari sa loob ng puso mo. And then if the physician sees na ikaw mukhang ischemic heart disease talaga, baka mag-request siya ng treadmill stress test.
Now let's shift the conversation a little bit back to the diet, specifically fats, cholesterol. Because if you're experiencing high cholesterol levels, avoiding saturated fats and switching them out for healthier options can reduce that number and improve your heart health. What are some of the foods na common dito sa Pilipinas that contain high amounts of saturated fats? Explain to us further yung impact ng mga pagkain na ito with our health as well as our wellness.
Cholesterol is not always bad. Your body needs it to build cells, make vitamins, and other hormones. So, ang sources of your cholesterol will be your liver. So, it makes the cholesterol that you need. Then the remainder will comes from the food, specifically animal-based food such as your meat and dairy products. So, yun yung tinatawag nating dietary cholesterol. So, examples of food na mataas yung saturated fat dito sa atin is of course yung mga beef, mga pork, ice cream, some baked food and fried food, and butter. So kung titignan natin yung dynamics ng diet natin dito sa Philippines, marami tayong nilalagay na ganito sa mga pagkain natin. For example, adobo. So ang adobo natin tends to be oily, salty, and mataas yung fat. So it affects our diet talaga in a bad way.
Doc Yubo, when it comes to diet natin, you explained earlier na ang sugar din talaga ang isang malaking culprit ng pagkababa ng ating heart health. What about salt? What about itong mga extra taba? Are they just as bad? Or what should our viewers know about salt as well as fats?
Too much salt will increase your blood volume. Hindi naman dadami yung blood vessel mo, pero dadami yung blood na nasa sa loob niya. Kaya tataas ang pressure. So it increases. Too much salt increases your blood pressure. Hanggang ano lang daw tayo 1.5 teaspoon the most. No? Okay, 1 teaspoon a day. Ngayon, sa fats naman, did you know na yung research showed na hindi sila nakakakos ng diabetes and heart disease. What was seen in research and in randomized controlled trials ay red meat, meaning pork and beef. Lalo na yung processed. Pero yung unprocessed pork and beef, they're fine. You can eat them siguro mga once or twice a week. Pero yung processed meats like yung mga binibili sa delicatessen, yung mga bacon, ham, and so forth and so on, siguro mga never in a day, so in a week. So talagang pwede ang unprocessed.
Pag-usapan naman natin ang medications that are catered towards, let's say, cholesterol. Merong gamot na para pampababa ng cholesterol, merong gamot na pampababa ng blood pressure, and all of these. Are these ways in which some people see this as a way, umiinom naman ako ng gamot, pwede ko naman i-continue kainin yung mga pagkain na gusto ko na mataas sa taba, mataas sa asin. Umiinom naman ako ng maintenance ko at gamot. What's the risk with this type of thinking?
Actually, gusto namin itama ngayon. Nung umpisa siguro, no? Nung unang pisang gumagawa ng gamot, ang medicine para sa hypertension at para sa cholesterol, ang purpose nila talaga is to decrease the level of BP and to decrease the level of bad cholesterol. However, ngayon, those medicines are not meant to just decrease the number, but to improve your health, to prevent disease. Ibig sabihin, pag niresita ka ng doktor mo, kahit ang normal ng gamot sa pampababa ng cholesterol, blood pressure, kahit ang normal ang BP mo at normal na ang bad cholesterol mo, you have to continue because ang ginagamot na niya, hindi yung laboratory mo, kundi yung ugat mong nababarahan. Kaya you have to continue them.
Now, eating well doesn't mean having to give up your favorite foods, but your favorite recipes can easily be adapted into a healthier alternative. More on this when we return. Your health is our mission here on MedTalk Health Talk. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is MedTalk Health Talk, your partner in healthcare. A healthy lifestyle involves a well-balanced diet, enough physical activity, and of course, a good and positive outlook. Today, we're here to help you adopt some of these simple habits to improve your overall heart health. Now, when we hear the term diet, we often think it requires giving up our favorite food completely or investing in expensive ingredients. Healthy cooking doesn't mean you need to be a gourmet chef. There are many ways to make meals healthier. Is it true that in order to have a healthy heart, one must live a life of bland food?
Hindi kailang bland. Dapat may salt pa din para masarap, no? May konting oil para may taste na masarap and everything. Ang problema kasi is the excess. Yun ang problema, yung excess. Too much. Kaya ang campaign is a balanced diet. Yung pinggang Pinoy, makikita nyo na merong isang tasang kanin, may isda or meat, tapos may gulay and fruits. Yun, kompleto na yun. Pero pag sinobrahan mo doon, it excess ang tawag doon. So yun ang mali na.
Now, for those starting their journey to eating healthy, it is often a road with many challenges. Nothing worth doing in life, ika nga, is easy. One of the harder challenges is keeping those cravings at bay. Coach Jay, anong mga tips na pwede mo ibigay to give those experiencing food cravings, lalo na yung cravings para sa sugary or salty food?
For my tips as a fitness professional, for example, if you mga Pinoy is heavy on sauce. Mahilig tayo maglagay ng mga sauce sa mga pagkain in everything that we eat almost. So instead of focusing on full fat base or cream based na sauce, we may shift to a light sauce. For example, we focus on herbs and spices to add taste to the food. And another tips that I can give you is go for soups. Kasi ang mga soup, it can fill you with fewer calories. Instead of focusing on cream-based na soups, focus on the broth-based. So you can mix it up with vegetables such as lentils or beans to add fiber on your diet.
Probably the important part of the entire episode, and that is talking about prevention. Dr. Guibo, there are also other ways to prevent heart disease. Let's talk about this for our viewers.
Number one, do not eat too much. No? Paano ma-suppress yung appetite mo? By exercising. Did you know na those people who are exercising, mas less ang kanilang food intake. And then substitute nyo yung mga white rice and white bread with brown rice or brown bread, no? Kasi yung isang cup ng white rice niya is 200 plus calories na yan. Mantalang 1/3 lang ang calories na laman ng brown rice. And then yung mas tama si Jay, mas lentils ka, mas ako yung cauliflower rice, it's very good. And then kung mag-uulam ka, white meat ang pipilian mo. Monday to Friday white meat, meaning fish and chicken. And then siguro sa weekend pwede kang mag-red meat, isang meal na pork o isang meal na beef to prevent excess naman ang bawal.
Now remember, adopting these habits require the right mindset and a long-term commitment, but it will be worth it. Thank you to our cardiologist, Dr. Gilbert Villela, and medical exercise specialist, Coach Jay Garcia, for being with us today and for sharing your expertise. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and thank you for watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. We'll see you again next time.